silence of 40 years lived in deep woods that was not broken by a whisper of wind, but by the grinding roar of horizon's timbers bulldozers, a sound of invasion, a promise of utter demolition. Hank, a man who thought he'd outrun the world, watched his past crumble, the very ground beneath his cabin about to be ripped away. Just as hope seemed lost, a pair of golden eyes emerged from the shadows. A scarred wildcat named Rusty, offering not a flight, but an invitation into the deepening forest. It was a desperate flight. Two aging souls, one man and one wild beast, forced from their sanctuary, facing the harsh unknown with nothing but a fragile, unspoken trust that would refine what home truly meant. The deep woods held a silence Hank knew intimately, not merely an absence of noise, but a living quiet that settled between heartbeats when the word paused. After 40 years, he could interpret the forest language, the creak of ancient pines, the whisper of dry leaves, the distant cry of a hawk circling the canopy. But today, that silence shattered beneath the mechanical growl tearing through the air. Horizon Timber had arrived a day early. The eviction notice still lay on his rough hewn table, its red seal glaring like an unhealed wound. Tomorrow, it had declared. But corporations carved their own timelines into the land as easily as they cut roads through virgin wilderness. Hank set down his chipped enamel mug, the dregs of bitterwood tea gone cold. At 68, his body told the story of his lives. Knuckles gnarled from winters spent splitting wood, a limp from an old cougar attack, a heart that shuddered when the east wind blew too strong. His backpack baited by the door, abruptly light, 3 decades reduced to 20 pounds, a hunting knife, matches in a dented tin, Betty's photograph, and the fading echo of her laughter buried 20 years in the past. He hesitated at the threshold, eyes tracing the Winchester above the hearth, its barrel dull from disuse. He didn't fire it in years. Some boundaries once crossed couldn't be uncrossed. Then he whistled, two precise notes falling like rain. From beneath the old pine, amber eyes gleamed in response. Rusty. The wildcat had become relic himself, his once bright fur grizzled, his muzzle scarred from battles Hank had witnessed but never interrupted. 3 winters passed. Hank had found him in a poacher's trap, his leg chewed raw from struggling. He'd freed him then, not from kindness, but because some debts couldn't be settled with bullets. Now, Rusty ignored their usual ritual of waiting for Hank to retreat. He stepped closer than ever before, his breath warm and feral, golden eyes locked on Hank's. Then he turned, tail flicking, and looked back over his shoulder, not an invitation, a demand. Rain transformed the forest into a dripping cathedral. Hank's boots sank into the mud, each step a negotiation with the grasping earth. Rusty moved like smoke ahead of him, paused silent on the sodden ground. By the third day, fire spread through Hank's chest with every breath. He fumbled for his hard pills, the last one dissolving bitter on his tongue, a gamble with poor odds. That night in the raw alcove, Rusty lay closer than before, not touching, never touching, but near enough that Hank could trace the lattice of scars webbing his flank. The wildcat's ribs rose and fell in time with the storm's rhythm. Hank wondered if Rusty dreamed of the same things, the snap of hearth flames, the weight of a rifle in steady hands, the way sunlight used to catch in Betty's hair before the sickness took her. The forest ended as if sliced by a blade. Beyond stretched fields, roads, rooftops, civilized jagged teeth. Rusty stiffened, claws kneading the earth in restless patterns. Hank knelt, offering their last scraps of food, a farewell. But Rusty didn't take it. He stared at Hank, golden eyes unblinking. You do? They seemed to ask. Hank walked, After 100 yards, he returned. Rusty remained at the tree line, his silhouette sharp against the failing light. Millfield reeked of gasoline and fried food. Hank's lungs rebelled. In the cafe, Martha slid coffee toward him without asking. They're buying the whole country, she said, erasing us, acre by acre. Susan Peterson's map confirmed it. Blackwood had been the last untouched stretch, but she spoke of Eagle Mountain, a reserve where trees still stood thick and wildcats still ruled. When Hank mentioned Rusty, her eyes didn't flicker with doubt. Animals remember, she said, especially those who've lost everything. Rusty appeared at Susan's garden, fur matted with burrs, gait uneven, 5 miles across open land, 5 miles of exposed danger. Hank's throat tightened. The wildcat didn't approach. He didn't need to. Eagle Garden rose before them like a promise. The ranger Ray refused him at first, until Linda intervened. You understand this forest better than any of us, she said. The cabin they offered stood smaller than his old one, but the air smelled right pine, moss, freedom. The resort proposals spelled annihilation. Hanks spent weeks documenting Rusty's movements, mapping his territory. Linda sent their findings to ecologists, lawmakers, anyone who might listen. They'll pave it all if we let them, she warned. The storm night when Hank's heart failed, he collapsed on the porch, snow already dusting his white skin. Rusty's cry split at the darkness, a sound Hank has never heard before, raw and terrible. It brought the rangers running. 2 weeks in the hospital, 2 weeks of silence. Returning, Hank found the cabin frozen empty. He set out food, waited. At midnight, the porch creaked. Rusty stood in the moonlight, frost silvering his fur. Hank reached out. The wildcat pressed his forehead against Hank's palm. Spring arrived gently. The resort plants died. Visitors to Eagle Mountain sometimes spoke of an old man and a scarred wildcat walking the trails, always a careful space between them. They said the man spoke to the cat like an old friend. They said the cat listened. In the evenings, when light fell gold through the trees, Hank would sit on the porch with bitter root tea, and Rusty would sprawl nearby, close enough to share warmth. Not tame, not wild, simply home.